A polarizing vote in New York's Lower Manhattan, splitting many touched by the 9/11 attacks. Now, officials have given the green light to build a mosque near Ground Zero. But does this help or hurt what is still very much an ongoing healing process? Here's Lucy Yang from affiliate WABC.
It was a raucous and impassioned meeting in Lower Manhattan as Community Board 1 considered whether or not to support a mosque near the former World Trade Center.
There are 200 mosques in New York, and yet another one is not a big deal. Calm down.
Calming down, easier said than done, as speaker after speaker railed against the Islamic Center.
This is an insult, this is demeaning, this is humiliating that you would build a shrine to the very ideology that inspired the attacks of 9/11.
This house of evil will be the birthplace of the next terrorist event.
We feel 9/11 very, very much. We belong in this area.
The old Burlington coat factory at 45 Park Place has already been purchased, and plans are underway to build the Cordoba House, a 15-floor Islamic museum, cultural center, and prayer space right in the shadow of Ground Zero. In the end, the board voted overwhelmingly in support of the new mosque, which means the only way for opponents to stop the plan now is to have the building landmarked. In Lower Manhattan, Lucy Yang, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Well, that debate is the topic of our Faces of Faith discussion this morning. Pamela Geller, she is the director with a group Stop the Islamization of America, and Ahmed Solomon, a Muslim and respected journalist, joining me on this from New York and Philadelphia, respectively. Now, Pamela, I want to start off with you. We understand that there's a protest that is planned today that you're leading. What is your group hope to accomplish today, and why are you against the building of Cordoba House, this Muslim and cultural community center?
Well, Ground Zero is a war memorial. It's a burial ground. And this mosque is offensive, it's humiliating, it's demeaning to the 3,000 innocent victims that lost their lives. Without Islam, this attack would never have happened. And we are rallying at Ground Zero at the corner of Liberty and Church to show the public outcry, and we're asking that they be sensitive and tolerant and responsive to this overwhelming dissent to this mosque. The latest polls show that America is against this mosque. To build a shrine to the ideology that inspired these jihadist attacks is
Geller?
Insulting. It is, yeah.
I want to read the response here from the Imam of the mosque and the cultural center, because they've put this out here and they want people like you and others who are criticizing them to understand what is going to take place in this facility. And they say that the Cordoba House seeks to create a community center where all people, Muslim, Jews, Christians, and those of every faith can gather in the spirit of honor, respect, and peaceful coexistence. And they go on to say that we cannot think of a better expression to promote the peaceful values of our faith than the Cordoba House, where American Muslims stand together with fellow citizens to condemn extremism and terror. It is a project to honor those who were harmed on September 11th. Why do you object when they say, you know, that's not correct what you're saying? This center is not about promoting some sort of hateful ideology. It's quite the opposite.
First of all, that statement is deception, because it is a mosque, and only Muslims can pray. Only Muslims can pray in a mosque. The only time non-Muslims are allowed in a mosque is if perhaps they would be able to convert. There is no plurality. There is no tolerance here.
Well, that's not true, because the Imam says that they would actually welcome people of various faiths to go and check this out. And you can, as a non-Muslim, I'm a non-Muslim, I've been to a mosque before, if you're invited to go as a guest, as long as you're respectful.
Yes, you are. You're invited to go for proselytizing, but it is not, there is no plurality in the mosque. And my question is, why there? How could it possibly be seen as outreach to build a mosque at the War Memorial that is ground zero? How? How could that be perceived? It is a kick in the head. I don't understand how it can be turned into this idea of outreach when it is the opposite. It is a triumph. It's triumphal. We know that in Islamic pattern is to build giant mosques on the cherished sites of conquered lands. We know this. This is Islamic history.
Ms.
And if
Geller,
it's causing such a rift,
I'd like to ask you, because there are obviously Muslim scholars and Muslims who disagree with you, but also President Bush made this point time and time again when he reached out and said, look, we've got to go after those who attacked Americans on 9/11, Al-Qaeda. Certainly not moderate Muslims and not the faith of Islam, that there is a distinction, that there's a difference. And if people don't understand it, it's out of ignorance or misunderstanding. How do you counter that point? Even President Bush said that what you're saying is not true.
I counter that point by saying, read the Quran, read the Hadith, read the Surah.
Well, they would counter that as well. I mean, and say that Islam, there's nothing in Islam.
Let me finish.
It's a perversion of Islam it's a faith of peace.
Yes, I understand, but you know, the Prime Minister of Turkey said there is no extreme Islam, there is no moderate Islam. Islam is Islam. There have been 15,000 Islamic attacks since 9/11, and it is inspired by the threat doctrine. We have to deal with it. Clearly, a better idea would be build a center dedicated to expunging the Quran of the violent texts that inspire jihad. Every jihadist attack has the imprimatur of a Muslim cleric. I mean, this is a fact. We can't rewrite reality. We have to see. We have to deal with what's in front of us. Or how are you going to change things?
Ms. Geller,
how are you going to work towards peace and tolerance?
How do you counter the reality that there are thousands of mosques across the United States and they are not points or symbols of jihad or hate?
We know from research done by SANE that 4 out of 5 mosques preach a hate and preach incitement to violence. We know this. As I said, it's part of the Quranic text. And I think that it's deeply offensive to build a mosque on the sacred ground of 9/11. There is a piece of the plane in that building. And I think what we need to do, we're going to file suit with the federal government to designate that building as a war memorial, as a historic landmark, like Gettysburg, like Pearl Harbor. There's a piece of that plane in that building. And to pray next to that is repugnant to any decent American, any Muslim of conscience. Let me tell you something. I receive emails from Muslims who don't believe a mosque should be there.
Okay, we're going to talk to another Muslim who has a point of view as well. And real quick before you go, have you read the Quran?
Yes, I have.
And
I strongly recommend Robert Spence's. I strongly recommend Robert Spence's The Infidel's Guide to the Quran, and Ibn Waraq and Wafa Sultan and Noni Darwish. These are books from former Muslims that must be read by the American people to understand what it is they're facing. They just arrested 2 more jihadis. They were U.S. citizens at JFK Airport. You have to understand the threat doctrine if you're going to address the threat.
Ms. Geller, we're going to have to leave it there. We're going to get another point of view here. Mr. Sullivan is joining us here, and I want to ask